People of the world, hello and welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language, episode 220 something. Behind me, you'll see a folding chair if you're watching us live on YouTube, or if you're watching us on YouTube after the fact. That folding chair and folding table is very special. You might think it's not all that special, but it is, because it's where me and my kids do our art. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where my heart is. My heart's in the art. Did you know that my guests today also have heart? Do you know how I know? I'm going to tell you, because they're in Mexico. Why are they living in Mexico? They're not supposed to retire for another 7 or 8 years. But when you attune yourself to the spirit, when you pray, when you meditate, when you're in flow, you realize that even though one of you might just be making a joke saying, let's go to Mexico, the other part of your power couple might be like, you know what? We're going to Mexico. We're doing this. This is happening. One of our guests today, Dr. David Hagstrom, was a pastor and is a pastor. You see how that works? Was one, is one. Went down to Mexico, was a Lutheran pastor for many years. And I'm not going to say he got roped back in, but he got roped back in. He's doing it again, Mexico style. His wife, Dana, was a paralegal for many, many years. They have started a business where they help entrepreneurs, Christian entrepreneurs specifically, with affiliate marketing, growing their own businesses. They are mentors. They have many, many, many years of experience. I know that this interview is going to be absolutely wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Dana and David Hagstrom.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. Thanks, Keelan, for having us.
Yes, thanks for the intro.
Anyone who has that many books in their background just has my respect right off the bat. A lot of books.
That's only part of them.
You don't know the half of it, Kellen.
Yeah. Well, we always like the guitars. The guitars are here too, but you just don't see them.
Yeah, you can't put everything in the background. So this guitar is a right-handed guitar, and this one's a left-handed guitar.
That is interesting, yes.
Right, because you're going to get tired of playing the one way. These fingers are going to get tired. You got to get the switch. You got to get the switch going. It's good for you. Okay, so there's no chance that we're going to unpack your entire life story in 30 minutes. Impossible. But we are going to start. So why don't we start with what it's like to be the wife of a pastor, to be a pastor in a Lutheran church for many, many years, to have people. Here's what I think a lot of people don't understand about being a pastor, and I'm as ignorant as the next guy, but here's my assumption. Suicidal, absolute abysmal depression, thinking about, getting off this medication, divorce, I'm losing my child, I'm in a custody battle, I don't know what to do. I've never been single in 15 years, and now I'm single, and I'm just terrified of whatever this is. My child got diagnosed with cancer. I got diagnosed with, these are the things that people come up to you and expect you to do something about.
It's interesting, as you brought up those examples, I saw faces.
I did too, and I saw my face sometimes.
And
right.
I thought of particular people in different congregations along the way that had those exact situations. And yes, you do deal with a lot of different situations with a lot of people in difficult situations. I remember way back to my first congregation where there were several people that I was really close to, I thought, while I was there. But after I left there, I think the only one that I really stayed in touch with for very long was the couple whose child had died in childbirth. There was a medical malpractice thing involved, and you remember those people that you walked with through the hard times of life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's a privilege. It really is.
It really is, yes.
It's a huge privilege that God gives us. It's a huge responsibility, but it's a privilege. But it's a very lonely life, being a pastor's wife, especially, lonely, and you feel like you're on display.
You are on display.
You can't.
You are. That's why you feel that way.
and it's hard to really want to be yourself because you think you need to be somebody else. You think you need to be this perfect person who can do it all, and you fall short every day. So
Right.
David was awesome to encourage me and tell me, just be you. If they don't like you, tough. You have to
Right.
be you. God made you the way he made you, and you need to be who you are. And so if that meant wearing a skirt a little shorter than some of those older women would have preferred, I did it.
Right. Right. Okay, so there's a few things that I want to talk about. Right off the bat, I have a thing in my craw about the way that we always gender God. We're always like he this, he that. God is both genders, obviously. Obviously, right? If anyone ever says goddess, does that like make you go, ooh? Or are you like, oh, totally, I get it?
I have trouble with using that term goddess,
Mm.
but I don't have any trouble with, what you said earlier, that God is not defined as male or female, but as male and female.
Yeah, thank you.
And we
Thank
are
you.
made in his image. That's why we are male and female,
Right. Yeah. So for me, it just feels like it's out of whack because I think people tend to bring up this sort of father vibe all the time, father this, father that, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, but it's both. I mean, and sometimes when I go through things in my life, it feels like something a mom would have you go through. You know what I mean? Where it's like, yeah, I'm in timeout, right? And it's got just like a mom vibe to it, the whole experience. And so for me, I like to play with that. I'll say, goddess bless you. And it's like, oh my goddess. And I will do that as an antidote for my own psychology, for the way that I'm perceiving the video game, the symphony of my life.
Yes. After all, Jesus used the image of
The father.
his father.
Yeah.
And did so frequently. And for me, I had a very wonderful, loving father whom I will always cherish. But I've also met and ministered to many, many people who did not have that same experience. And there are those images in the scriptures of God acting in a way that's very mothering as well. And yet, there's times when I think, you need to draw on that because it's part of the richness of scripture and it's part of people's experience, and they can relate to that better than they can relate to the image that maybe is the more dominant one.
Yes, I love where your head's at on this one as a pastor, because it's that's quite the stretch. And, it's like, how much different would things have been for Christian? And mind you, I'm multi-religious. Like, you want to talk about Buddhism, you want to talk Taoism, you want to talk Hinduism. I speak all those languages because I feel it's very important for me personally just to go into those spaces. I absolutely adore religions. I just think they're so fascinating. I love studying them in the same way that I love studying languages, right? You heard me speak Spanish before. I speak some Chinese. To me, religions are languages, and there's nuance in there. And I just wonder with Christianity, if he had just said the mother, right? It's the mother, it's on her authority. It's, you know what I mean? Like, how different it would have been and how different he would have been received. My father passed away when I was 2. And so for me, my father, who art in heaven, it was always very difficult to like see God as anything other than literally my dad, who I never met.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying? So for me, it's like my father. It's so everyone's story is so different. So I knew this was going to be fantastic. So all right. So you moved down to Mexico, and you were thinking that you weren't going to get roped in, but I actually wanted to talk about something Ram Dass said. Have either of you heard of Richard Alpert, otherwise known as Ram Dass?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, I'll just really quick talk about him. So he was a Harvard professor. He went to India. He met some guru named Maharaji. He's written Global Phenomenon. Be Here Now was his most popular book. He's a very popular like Hindu character, but he's a Jewish man, right, who just had this like huge spiritual transformation, you two would just adore him. I mean, he talks about the love of Christ, and then he goes into all this Hindu stuff. You would absolutely adore this guy. He's still alive. He had a stroke, and he referred to the stroke that paralyzed half of his body and took away pretty much his ability to speak almost, as being stroked by God. I mean, this dude he's on the whole level. Anyway, I wanted to mention him because Dana, something you said to me, reminded me of something he said, which was you get trapped in this idea that you're supposed to be a holy person, right? Like he's supposed to be the holy guy. He's supposed to, like when he goes into spaces, but that's not holy. If you're irritated and someone's doing something that's irritating you, you're still human. You're still taking the curriculum of being a human, and yet all of these expectations are put onto you because of your job, essentially. And though you might not be receiving a paycheck from the church, it's still a job being the pastor's wife. And women get so blasted all the time based on what they wear and what they say. I mean, there were these newscasters where the guy wore the same suit the entire year. No one said anything. And the woman, and like they're always talking about what she's wearing. I mean, let's dive into that for a second. So did you take it to heart what your husband said, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to tune it out? Or it must have just been constant?
I did, for the most part. Okay. I stepped into who I was. There were times where, yeah, it would have been fun just to be the little homemaker kind of that they were expecting. Yep. Maybe, but I loved what I was doing. I loved my career. I loved all the things I was building. I did so many different things but I was still very visible at church. I was the musician. I was the worship leader. I was children's ministry director. I mean, okay. I did all the things they expected me to do.
Well, you did a lot of things, but you didn't do them necessarily the things that they expected or the way that they expected.
Right. I wasn't showing up to the circle meetings or the quilting bee and the things like that. That's not me. But I was doing things.
Oh, how did you not show up to the quilting circle? They're all she's not sure. Yeah. Oh man. I don't know. I mean, let me ask you this. Do either of you believe in coincidences? Do you think that there's a randomness, or do you think that every single thing that transpires in our life is part of the lesson plan?
I am not a strict determinist by any means. Since you bring that question up, I think that there's a lot of things that happen in this world that are not God's intention, so that there's not a plan for everything. I remember being asked by a middle school child once why somebody had died, and I was explaining it, and another kid in the group just said, "Kids die because they get hit by trucks." And I said, that's exactly right. Some things happen that are not anybody's plan, was not some divine intention, but are just tragedies. And if somebody robs a store and an innocent bystander is killed, was that somebody's intention? I don't think so. On the other hand, I do believe that God uses the things that happen and leads them in ways that are for the good of his people. I think of life as like looking at the backside of a tapestry, where there's all these strings that are coming out and that are tied off in different ways, and you think it doesn't make a lot of sense. And someday we'll get to see the other side and see the beautiful patterns that are all laid out there, and
understand how it all fits
together.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. So tell me if you agree with the following statement. We are not our bodies. That's the absolute core of who and what I am. To me, we're extra dimensional in the same way that you can identify with the video game character that you're playing, right? You can be like, I'm Mario, and you're all into it, and you're jumping around with Mario, and then he gets small, and you're like, why did he get small? And you're literally physically reacting to the fact that he got small, but you're not Mario, so why are you getting so attached to Mario? And then he dies, and then he comes back, and he dies, he comes back, and you can keep playing that game. The creator of that game said, go ahead, play the game as many times as you want. You can go as fast as you want, you can go as slow as you want, but there are parameters, right? And within those parameters, you can die, you can get big, you can win, you can do whatever. It's a game. It's the Matrix. You're inside of a hologram, dude. You can't take off the VR headset. People try to take off the VR headset with drugs. They try to take off the VR headset with meditation, through a lot of prayer. Like, you can just maybe just get a glimpse of taking that thing off, but that thing is strapped to the head of our soul. I mean, we're in the game. And please, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's as far as how we look at ourselves, that changes through the generations, and now we happen to live in a very interesting time with brain science developing in a way that it's never been there before.
Oh, heavens, yes.
So we can say, I am not my brain, but without my brain, I'm not me. I'm not just a body, but the body's pretty important to me.
Oh, there's no question about that. Thank you for my body, by the way.
Yeah. So way back in the scriptures, even of the first covenant, the Hebrew scriptures, we can see they'll look at the whole of the person, from the standpoint of your body, or from the standpoint of your mind, or from the standpoint of your spiritual self. But you're always the whole person that includes all of those things.
Well, and I agree with you there, because if I put down the controller and Mario just dies, right? What are we? You know what I mean? Like, there's a connection there. But one of the points I'm trying to make is, when at the end of the day, inside of Marioville, if you have all these Mario scientists and they all get together and they're like, we can't find the soul, we can't find it, we keep trying to, it has no weight, it is weightless, right? Like, why can't we find it? And the reason is because you're looking at the pixels inside of the game. You can't measure it because it's not in the pixels. Matter is not created nor destroyed. We only have the frequency of the vibration of the universe, and that creates all chemistry, everything, right? It's just this tapestry that you described, and the degree to which it vibrates manifests in whatever way we happen to see it. And so you cannot measure the soul. It's immeasurable because it's outside of the game. And that to me is a very important point, because it's the only thing in my mind that eliminates the horrors of this life. It eliminates the cancer. It eliminates he died, but we don't know why. If you're just a character in a game, you're just a character in a game. Okay. If that's not you, then I get it. The guest on my show the other day, and we're going to get to Esther's questions, he was literally 7 years old in a Walmart parking lot. Someone hopped out of their car. The passenger realized that they hadn't put the car into park. The passenger goes over to the driver's seat to hit the brakes, hits the gas.
Oh.
This 7-year-old turns, no time, gets run over, tire tracks here, arm 20 feet that way. Nurse comes out, gets the arm on ice, stems the bleeding of Mike Bogert, this is his last name. Incredible human being. They end up reattaching the arm, but it's not a functional arm. Okay. 7 years old, 24 surgeries later. That's his story, right? That is just hell. It's just hell. But I see hell as a difficulty setting in a video game. You start a video game, you got easy, medium, hard, and the higher the difficulty setting, the more the reward, the more the payoff. If you're willing to just have it just be total chaos, just, you look at the saints, these are their lives. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Jesus, I mean, you name them, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, like their difficulty settings are just amped to the absolute max. And that's how you score more points.
Yeah. I have to say I'm not a video game.
I'm taking you there, Pastor. I'm taking you there.
Yeah. So if I'm missing some things, I apologize because
you get it. You know what I'm talking about. So anyway, let's get to Esther's question. She writes, Pastor, with respect, ooh, look at that clarification. How would it affect you to learn there was no God? Whoa. Esther coming in hot with that question.
Yeah, I appreciate your question, and I do take it as a respectful question. It would really completely implode my worldview, and I think that I would have difficulty dealing with that. That realization should it happen. But
I would fight it. I would be like, you got to be kidding. I wouldn't believe it. I would fight it. I know my hackles would go up, it would take me a hard time to believe it.
Yeah. So I started with the premise of her question,
but if we did hear that.
No, I love that answer though. I love that because I think I'll put it this way. So I was in the midst of this sort of medical emergency, horrifying thing that I was going through, and the depression was real. The darkness was real. I mean, I was really struggling on multiple fronts. And I have an electric longboard. So if you just imagine a flying carpet, like I'm like Aladdin, I've got this little remote and I can just buzz around the earth, like I'm flying on this magic carpet. I love that thing. And this thing with my eye had taken all joy away. I didn't want to be outside. I just wanted to shut her in. But I would go out anyway. And I literally was singing hallelujah in the hills, in the communities. I'm like, hallelujah, bawling like a crazy person. Do you understand? Like an absolute crazy person. Singing hallelujah, because to me, that's when it matters.
Let me describe a different situation in life for myself that really responds to Esther's question.
Yeah.
Because I did go through a time in life when I found myself wondering, does God exist? And that was after I went through a divorce.
Yep.
My first wife decided she no longer wanted to be in a relationship with a man. And after that experience going through divorce, I was in a clinical depression.
Yep.
For at least a year. But the first 6 months, I felt like I was looking at life and watching it all on a TV screen. I was not part of it. And I've run into a few people who have had that experience, and for months I spent time every day reading the scriptures, especially the Psalms, found deep levels of consonance with people that in the Psalms that were crying their hearts out and expressing their anger and their depression, and that was me, and crying out to God. Was constantly in relationship with God, even though I was struggling to that point where I just didn't know, will I be a believer when I'm through, when I get past this experience. Now, looking back, I have to say I'm a stronger believer and a stronger person for having gone through that experience. But in the midst of it, I had no idea where it would end up.
Oh, yeah. People talk about faith. I like to use the term manna because I'm a nerd. I don't know if either of you are familiar with manna. Again, I'm taking you back to the world of video games. Welcome to, we're going back.
I'm familiar with manna
manna?
from the biblical story.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So I'll
Not-
tell you what I think manna is, and then you tell me what you think manna is. We'll go take turns.
You tell me about the
Yeah.
video game
I'll
version.
tell you about the video game version, and then you tell me about the biblical version. All right. So mana is usually identified as like a blue, and then your health is red in video games, right? So you get hit, the red health starts going down, your constitution, your physical health, right? And then you've got this blue meter, that's your mana. And if you want to like shoot a fireball, right? Or do some telepathic thing or some spiritual whatever, some magical thing, right? Your mana depletes, right? And then sometimes there's like a potion that will have your mana go, but normally just over time, it slowly fills up. And both your health and your mana will have some cap. So say it's 100 each. You have 100 health, 100 mana. But when you level up, when you get more experience, when you get older, maybe your cap is now 120. Right. So now you have more mana and you can do more stuff. Now you cap. And if you're like a wizard or a priest or a sorcerer or whatever, now you're more focused on mana. So you might have like 500 mana and your health might be 60. Right. And what I feel like, having gone through what I recently went through, is I just got a mana boost. You know, because I like depleted it, and I just kept spending this mana and just getting more and more and more experience on that side, doing all of these spiritual practices while my health was like dwindling. It was like terrible. It was like a 2, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. It's like awful. But I just focused on the mana side of it. And so I think we can evolve in that way. I think we can level up our spirituality. We can see things, we can manifest things, we can play. You can call it psychology if you want to, but for me it's a spiritual endeavor. It's more faith.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me, man.
I think one of the classic examples of that is, we see so many young people primarily that commit suicide. And I've helped, or I've walked with families through that time and again. And why do we see suicide so often in adolescents? Well, simply because they've run into a life experience that they didn't have the tools to handle, and they haven't had enough life experiences to say, I'm going to get past this and things are going to be different. It's like they feel like this is all there is. And, if it's always going to be like this, I don't want to be part of this. And those that have been through crises and have been through painful and difficult experiences can often look back and say, yeah, that was really, really tough. I wouldn't have wanted to stay there like that either, but you get past it. And life isn't always bad. And
I feel so bad for these kids, because I taught for a number of years, and the correlations between the prison system and the school system are too many to neglect. They are. They're too many to neglect. As a prisoner, you're not forced to do homework. There are some luxuries that prisoners have that our students do not. The pressure on our kids to physically have to be there, to not choose where you sit, to do exactly as they tell you, when they tell you, how they tell you. I mean, it is very, very scary. And the counterbalance, right? I had a guest on my show, Chinobe, who is this incredible Ugandan world famous musician. I mean, there are environments where there is no schooling. So I'm not saying that, oh, no school is better than school. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to be able to understand the connection between prison systems and the current education system. And we're going to get out of it. There is a silver lining in this pandemic. We are going to see people being able to take calculus as a 4th grader online. We're going to see incredible instructors become very popular online. We're going to give kids the ability to be depressed like you were after the divorce. That whole year like, what are we doing that we force depressed people into a prison-like situation where they have to like pretend that they're okay day in, day out, surrounded by a bunch of kids that, let's face it, there are things that kids will do to you that if an adult did you, it'd be illegal, or you'd report them, or you would quit your job and move to another job. These poor kids, they have nowhere to go. You have to go to that class. You have to sit by that person. You have to have a face that is riddled with acne, and it has been for 6 years. You know what I mean? The fact that your parents are going through a divorce, I mean, we'd give them no respite. We give them none. And here we expect them to be happy about the whole situation. To me, it's absolutely absurd. Why can't a kid take 3 months? Can't do it. It's literally against the law. I mean, it's insane to me. Absolutely insane the way we treat these poor kids, and that has to change. And that's a master's degree in education behind you. So I'm not some schmuck who doesn't know what he's talking about. I've been in those environments going like, this is horrible for these poor kids. So that, I mean, oof, we got to change that. There is no way we are going to get everything we got to talk about. It's going to be 1,000 episodes. It's going to be 1,000 episodes. It just is what it is. So we're out of time is the reality. So it just means you got to come back. You got to come back. But I would feel bad if we don't get it. And this is going to be another 10 minutes, but, we're going to get to Esther's comment. It's going to be the final thing we do today. We touched on your divorce. That's huge. I love that you shared that. That to me is like, mwah, like
that much. Yeah.
I see this. I'm telling you, Oprah, this shows the Oprah moments. So I love that you shared that, because from the heights of the ivory tower, from the altar itself, from, God's chalice in front of you, this is precisely what people need to hear. You know what I mean? They need to hear the reality of what you've gone. I love it. Just could not love it. So thank you so much for sharing that. But we're going to end with this comment. So Esther Sass and your response to it. So she writes, exactly, isn't Nietzsche, you all know Nietzsche, everyone brings up Nietzsche. So God is dead, and therefore the responsibility for one's life is on themselves. So are you saying without God, you couldn't be the ethical person that you are?
Without God, I would not be the person who I am. Ethics, we could go into a long discussion of what ethics is and why we're motivated to do the things that we do. For myself, my own motivation in life is largely one of pleasing God and enjoying all that God has given and created, and
the joy that
we wake up each day filled with gratitude for a new day and the opportunity of living in this amazing creation. And especially in the isolation of this last year, the wonder of being together and walking through life together. I know that doesn't answer the question, but that's just my response.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm envisioning episode 22. All right. So we'd love to have you back. Just scratching the surface. I don't believe in coincidences at all. That's my personal thing. My thing is, look, Magnus Carlsen can play against a chess computer. He'll lose every time. Magnus Carlsen is the world chess champion. He can't even touch AlphaZero. And that's human created intelligence. So how much more intelligent is the intelligence that we can only imagine, right? So the intelligence of creation. I don't create jack. I take whatever is here and I change it a little bit. You know what I mean? That's what I do. I'm a gamer. And the other thing too is, I think God has incredible respect for the players of the game, because this ain't easy either. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying like being a creator is easy by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have a clue. But what I'm saying is the players of the game are sometimes incredibly respected, and there might not just be God, there might be God and a trillion other developers that are creating the hologram that we find ourselves in. And he's just the executive, right, of the team that creates the hologram that we live in. And for them to look at us, I think they look at us and go, whoa, like you guys are incredible. In the same way that we look at LeBron James is like, man, this dude, wow, Steph Curry, wow, the grace, the way that they can perform under pressure. That's what we're doing. And so we should give ourselves a pat on the back too, because this ain't easy. There's nothing about this that's easy, so Anyway, could not possibly be more happy with our interview today. No coincidences. It's no coincidence that we met on this particular day. That's what I believe. So, ladies and gentlemen, the incredible David and Dana Hagstrom, final words of wisdom for the folks.
Well, one thing that I want to say is that I hope that they will take a look at our website, David and Dana, just the letter N between our names, davidanddana.com, and get to know us there. That's one place to get to know us, and it'll lead you to all sorts of other places where you can get to know us better. And we'd love to get to know you too. So reach out.
Absolutely. If you're listening to this, it's not some sort of weird, chaotic coincidence that these vibrations have met your ears. It's not a coincidence. DAVID, the letter N, DANA.com. You know you want to go there. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for swinging on by the show today, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, every single Monday through Friday, even the ones where I sleep in. I slept in this morning. Can you believe it? Also available on iTunes and Spotify and 10 others podcast platforms, streaming live on the Send It Rising Facebook page and my personal LinkedIn. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.